Hey everybody, it's Joe from greenlightsound.com, and in today's episode 2 of our classic plugin series, we've got a look at the Sonnox Oxford Inflator from Oxford Plugins. And in my mind, the classic plugin series is really looking at some tools that have stood the test of time, which in the digital world is not that long, but this is a plugin that's been around quite a while, over a decade, and is still used by many engineers. So the Oxford Inflator is designed to increase the apparent loudness of almost any material that it's applied to, even if the dynamic range of the material has already been reduced with compression. It can also add some nice tube warmth and some saturation and distortion even to a signal when you overdrive it. So the controls are pretty basic in that there's 4 faders and 3 buttons, but they're kind of complex to explain exactly what they do. So let's go over the controls really quick. Right in the middle on the buttons, this clip 0 dB button. The inflator itself can internally develop signal levels above the 0 dB FS digital maximum. So when the effect level is at maximum, when you push this slider all the way up and the effect level is at maximum, and the clip dB light is off, peaks above the digital maximum can actually happen with the harmonic information included in the output signal without clipping the output itself. So this extra range is actually shown at the top of the input meter here. You can see there's the 0 dB FS, and you have 6 dB of headroom above that before clipping occurs. When the clip 0 dB button is engaged, the inflator is restricted to the normal digital maximum range, and the input meter will never go above this 0 dB marker. Sonnox suggests leaving the clip 0 dB button in the on default position for most uses, but you can experiment on and off to see how it works for you. The band split button right below, it's yellow when it's engaged, that splits the processing into 3 different frequency bands, low, mid, and high, and that's sometimes useful when going for max loudness on material that has most of its energy in a certain specific frequency range, but the signal is more likely to clip at the output when you put this in, so watch out for that. Of course, we got the effect in, that's bypassing the effect at all. We've got our input fader here, that's its default position. We can push it, and if we push it really hard, we can bring in some distortion. The effect fader sets the overall inflator effect that goes from 0 to 100%. The curve fader here, the curve changes the processing characteristics and sonic effect of the inflator. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second. And of course, an output fader, which sets the output level. So a little bit more about this curve control. At its minimum, all the way down, -50, it's really subtle, but adds some harmonic content for a richer sound. Louder parts of a mix will be accentuated over softer ones, giving sort of the effect of dynamic expansion. It's really great on drums or acoustic guitars, where you can soften the peaks without losing apparent dynamic range. And settings between -50 and 0 on the curve fader kind of emphasize that effect, bring it out a bit. So I'm going to play a drum track here, and I'm going to bring up this curve fader from bottom position here of -50 up to 0, and you're going to hear some of that richness and fatness added. Bypass. Bring it back down. Really low level, but bypass. Just a little bit of thickness down there. So settings on the curve fader between 0 and +50 from the midpoint here all the way up. They increase volume and fatness, and the lower background parts of a mix are enhanced, and extreme low frequency instruments like basses will translate better to smaller speakers and playback systems. Same thing with kick drum here. So I'm going to play that drum part again, this time push the curve fader up. Bypass. So we're back to our default state here, and the basic setup for getting maximum loudness here goes step by step like this. First, we're going to start with that clip 0 dB light on. Then we're going to use the input fader to push just until we start getting a few peak lights here on the meter right above 0. Let's do that first. There we go. So occasionally hitting that clip light right there in the middle of the meter. Next, we're going to pull that output fader down so that our input and output have similar readings. We're going to leave our curve on default here. We're going to leave that band split off. We leave the effect now. We're going to pull that effect up to 100%. So we went from here to here. Now, I want you to look at the channel fader down here for the drums bus. You're going to see that when I engage the inflator, it looks like it's not really moving that much higher on our meters, but the apparent loudness is much greater. Check out the meter down here. So a big increase in the apparent loudness without that much of an increase on the fader itself. Now, if we want to take it even farther, if we still like our results, but we want to push it a little bit more, we can deselect the clip 0 dB button and push that input even more. So we'll bring it down a little bit more. It's really best to leave the effect at 100% and kind of mess with the input and curve to get the results you want. Leave the effect all the way up. Now, we could, of course, push it really hard in the distortion and bring the effect down. And that kind of balances it out a little bit too. Now we're going to go back to the drum part again and experiment with using the inflator as a strict distortion box, pushing it really hard to get distortion. The way we're going to set that up is we're going to push that effect all the way up to max, 100%. Leave that curve midway again. We're going to push that input up and use the output fader to balance it out and kind of experiment with the clip 0 dB light on and off. So we just add some nice distortion to it. Here's it without. And with. So there we have it, the Oxford Inflator, a great tool for adding apparent loudness to pretty much anything, distorting the heck out of stuff if we want to, or just getting a little bit of analog warmth to a signal. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section down below. If you have any ideas about a plugin you might want me to take a look at next in the Classic Plugin series, let me know that as well. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already so we can keep you in the loop as to what's coming up next, and I'll see you in the next one.